Welcome to the Prevail Over Cancer Podcast, where we take a metabolic approach to help guide you on preventing, prevailing, and striving over cancer.
We are live on the Prevail Over Cancer Podcast. My incredible co-host, Keith Bishop. I'm Jeff Lopes. This week, we are on number 21, episode number 21, wow. And it's kind of like a little segue. And we've actually, I'll talk to you on it as well after, but we hit a milestone for downloads, which was incredibly fast for 20 episodes. Way faster than my Jeff Nosing podcast. So we're doing amazing stuff. We're getting incredible fan mail. Yeah. This has been such a joy doing this with you. This week, we're going to talk about vitamin D, and it kind of is this little segue because we did talk about skin cancer. We're talking about the sunlight. One of the posts I did also was talking about sunlight and the benefits of sunlight, and talking about we're talking about skin protector, not skin protection. I'm actually sunscreen, all that stuff. So vitamin D, we're trying to get as much as we can through the sunlight. But reality, yes, when you're living in the East, we got the snow, we got the weather. I mean, we're already in Toronto, Canada here. All the trees are already turning. It's autumn already. The trees are turning red and orange already. It's getting colder. The nights are the sunrise is getting shorter. Like everything, the sunset, everything is just changing so rapidly. And winter's approaching. And vitamin D intake is very important. It's been a very huge part of just my daily vitamins, and it has been for years. But I mean, since cancer, I've really increased. I've really focused on it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about vitamin D. Let's talk about which cancers it's actually associated through studies that actually helps benefit, which is one of them we talked about prior coming on, colorectal cancer and all that. So vitamin D is a staple, yes or no? And everybody?
Yes. Okay. Well, we have to have it. We do. And it's so important. We'll get into all of that, but definitely immune system, especially coming into more winter season. And we're going to be exposed to more bugs, and it helps the immune system to work better. Matter of fact, probably every single cell in our body has a vitamin D receptor, and so if we don't have that vitamin D attaching to that cell and attaching to this receptor, that cell's not going to work right. And so, and it can be immune and bone, or probably a couple of areas, and cancer, but any cell isn't going to operate like bones, osteoporosis. If there's not enough vitamin D, then those bone cells aren't going to function properly. And then actually vitamin D acts as, well, in science, we call it a chelator, but it actually binds to calcium inside the gut and takes it into the body to use. And so if there's not enough vitamin D in the lining, in the blood vessels, in the gut, then the the calciums and other minerals are not absorbed as well. But it even just helps with absorption of minerals.
Let's talk about vitamin D and please explain. So we think about it and we hear the word vitamin, but vitamin D is an actual hormone. Am I correct with that?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, so break that down and explain that.
Yeah. So, back in the 30s, whenever World War II era, they were trying to figure out what vitamins do young men need as they're going to war, and the early 1900s, and they discovered this vitamin D, and if humans and animals didn't get it, then that was bad. So they just called it a vitamin, and but it's not really a vitamin. It is actually a hormone, which means our body makes it.
Yes.
And so a vitamin is more like a nutrient we get from food. And vitamin D, we can get a tiny bit from food, but it's difficult. I mean, we just can't get enough. And, from any food, I mean, we can get a tiny bit, but our body makes it. So actually, it's more in chemistry, in the physical structure of vitamin D. It is actually more closely related to estrogen and testosterone.
Yeah.
And cortisol, and DHEA and all the different hormones, and even the thyroid hormone. So it's more closely related to that, is a hormone our body makes, in this case, on exposure to sunshine. So, and that amount can vary depending on the latitude, where we are, on sunshine exposure. It is a seasonal thing. And the darker skinned a person is, the more difficult it is for their body to make the vitamin D on sunshine exposure. So a darker skinned person, like for me, I'm very light skinned, light colored eyes. And so Northern European descent, primarily, although I'm a mixture of many things, but Northern European, on evidence, physical evidence, midday, August, sun, 20 minutes, I've made my vitamin D, for the day. That's all I need.
Let's talk about that. So is there a stat, or is there something that actually states like, okay, sunlight, this much time in the sunlight, this much exposure will give you this much equivalent in IUs of vitamin D? Like, is there some kind of stat that shows that?
Well, there probably is, but then actually it depends on skin color.
Okay.
And once again, latitude. So it depends on the angle of the sun. So, if the angle is like this, we're not getting very much because the sunlight is having to go through a large
clouds and all
amount of atmosphere. Atmosphere. And so we're going to lose some of it. Or if it's straight above us, that's closer. And so midday, midsummer, we're going to get a lot faster. So, we are North America, we are definitely losing a lot of sunlight, and it's much more difficult. So I can go outside and work and not have to put sunscreen on, or I don't wear sunscreen, but put protective clothing on. And that's one. So actually the factor is whenever our skin starts, turning just a little bit red, and it's more difficult, the darker color a person's skin is, the more difficult it is to see that. But when it starts turning just a little bit pink or red, I mean, you've got your vitamin D, that's enough.
Okay.
But and that actually that's the first beginning phase of tanning or getting darker, is because our vitamin D levels are up.
Yes.
And so there is a little bit of science, but that's not my area. But I do know some bodybuilders, that are the posing things, and so they want a tan.
Yeah.
And so they will take vitamin D to help them to tan faster, so they don't have to spend as much time in a tanning bed. To get that tan, although they're probably doing sprays or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of them do the tanning sprays now.
So it is a hormone. It does take exactly, and so and tanning beds are definitely a concern, and mainly it's just it's just too much, too long, too much. So each burn that you get, literally when you turn red, that means you've gotten too much, and you have damaged cells when they start turning red. You've baked it, literally.
Let's talk about quantity or the dose of vitamin D that should be required for the average person. So I take right now, summertime, and and then we're going to jump into, we'll talk about after vitamin K2 as well. But I take 4,000 IUs a day in the summer. In the winter, I bump it up to 6,000 to 7,000 IUs. That's myself. I'm 6'2", 165 pounds, very lean. What is the recommended dose? And one thing too is the average person, when they're doing their annual physical, most doctors will never request vitamin D levels check. This is something you got to ask your doctor for. I know in Canada, because we actually have to pay for it. It's not covered by OHIP here.
Correct.
You're going to pay an extra $30 or $40, but it's so important to know if your vitamin D is at a proper level. So if you're doing your annual, you're going to go you got a requisition for your blood work, ask your doctor to add vitamin D so you can see where your vitamin D levels are, because as Keith was saying, it's a hormone. It's something we need.
Right.
It's probably the number one thing we want to focus on for keeping our immune strong. And our immune strong, I mean, we're eliminating the chances of getting cancer. That's the first and most priority there. So what do you recommend dose-wise for the average person?
Yeah, so the average adult needs around the 4,000 to 5,000 IUs. That 5,000 IUs, international units, is also 125 MCGs. That's becoming a more of a international standard, is the MCG measurement. So about 125 is kind of average. But I have a few people that don't have to take any, which is kind of surprising. I don't understand that. And then I have other people that have, our body uses it. So it's not like you just put it in and you forget about it, but our body's using it. And when it attaches to a cell, it does its function, it's gone. And so I've noticed that people that have autoimmune diseases, or they are fighting an infection, they are using up more and they have to have more. So that can vary the dose. And then also body weight makes a difference on supplements. And so if you're very lean, you do not have to have much, because this is a hormone. All hormones are fat soluble. They're going to be stored in fat cells. So the more body fat a person has, the higher the dose they have to take, and the longer it takes to get that proper level. So I've seen literally it take way over 6 months for some people to get their level. And so I don't recommend testing again frequently. I may recommend, kind of time of the year, like summertime, my maximum exposure. It's good to know, how am I doing? Am I taking too much, or can I cut back some? And then in the wintertime, am I getting enough? Do I need to bump that up because I can't get it, from the sunshine?
Yeah.
And so we do want that to work. So we will adjust doses to a certain extent. And there are a few people that don't need it. There's potential concerns about too high of a blood level. And so we're starting to see, because people are starting to take it on a regular basis, and there's a possibility that there may be some extra, because it absorbs calcium from the gut, and we may see some calcium deposits inside blood vessels.
Let's talk about that.
And like some atherosclerosis plaque issues.
Yeah.
If we're pushing that vitamin D level up to the top end, and each country has their own range on that, so I'm not going to mention numbers, but and because there's millimoles and picomoles, whatever. There's different numbers, so we'll just say, kind of the goal. My goal is kind of like we want at least halfway in that range, and maybe a little higher, but not all the way to the top.
Yeah, and if you do your blood, I mean, the range, I don't know how it is in the US, but when we were checking our blood, it could be anywhere from, I think the lowest they want is 100, and it go up to 400 on the reading. So you want to be in that. I mean, I think I've been pretty steadily around the 300. So I'm on the little higher end, but the healthier, and I'm trying to keep it there on purpose. Let's talk about that, because about a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I got diagnosed and I started doing some more research, I've always taken vitamin D, just vitamin D. Let's buy vitamin D. Let's buy the capsules. I try to buy capsules.
Right.
And I try to buy a higher grade of it, a better quality one. And I've always done my, like I said, 3,000, 4,000 summer, winter, I bump it up 6. I've always done that. Once I started doing some more research and I started learning more about how it could build up the calcium, and then that's when I started buying the one that actually has already a K2. Usually I think it's the 200 IUs in there as well, of K2 mix in there, which I was told helps not build up the calcium buildup. Am I right with that or wrong?
That's correct. Well, that's what we think. This is a whole new area, So this has only been, matter of fact, the K2 is only becoming popular, and they are just starting to study it. And so there's not much medical research on it, but yes, there is evidence showing that taking a higher dose of K2 with it, so vitamin K2 actually works better at attaching to calcium. So even a little bit of vitamin D, may even help pull some calcium out of the blood vessels. So there can be advantages. So if you have some plaque in here and you got some calcium in that, that's what the shows or glows up on the CT heart scan, the calcium score, a very popular thing here. And so, but that calcium, but vitamin D, if done appropriately, may help pull that off. But vitamin K2 works much better at that. And so it attaches to the calcium better than the D, and then it moves that calcium and puts it in the bone better than D. So actually, and then vitamin K2 it's interesting. There's K1, K2, and then K3. K3 is actually a significant anti-cancer chemical, but it's not available. It is a prescription drug.
Interesting.
But K3, yeah. So there's another. So a little different. That's a little different shape on that vitamin K. Makes it a much stronger anti-cancer thing. We'll talk a little bit more about how that works. How these things work. But vitamin K2, they are studying it, and it does have some anti-inflammatory, which is anti-cancer, and some differentiation, means it helps the cancer cells to work normal effects, and then also improving circulation. And so it's very important. And on that end, matter of fact, I predict that vitamin K2 is going to be like D3. So many of our viewers are going to go, well, K2. Oh yeah, okay. Well, I haven't heard of that, and okay, I'll check that out. But I predict that eventually we'll get vitamin K2 blood. There are some blood tests available. They'll become more common, more affordable, and we're going to have to learn that we're going to have to be taking a lot more of K2. So the recommended daily allowance is like around 90 to 100 mcgs of K2 a day, and I predict that. Matter of fact, I take one and had one designed that actually it's 500 mcgs.
So the one I'm taking right now is 1,000 every capsule is 1,000 IUs of vitamin D, and it's 200 mcgs of vitamin K2. So it's a balance of 1,000 and 200. So
okay,
and I actually bought that from a supplement store here. So vitamin. Yeah. Would you recommend individuals, if they are sourcing out vitamin D, they should source out a mixture of vitamin D and K2 right now?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I always, go for that, and people are pretty well accepting it, and doctors too. And matter of fact, I've seen I have clients that have carotid artery plaque, and and they do actually a high dose of K2 along with a digestive enzyme called nattokinase on empty stomach, eats away at that plaque inside the blood vessels, and this carotid artery gets better.
Yes.
And so it helps soften that plaque. So the calcium, if you have a lot of calcium floating around, it gets in the plaque and it makes it hard. Like, it's limestone in a way, if you don't think of it. Makes it hard. Well, and K2 helps, take some of that calcium out. So now this cholesterol that's in there is softer, and our body does have to have cholesterol, so we have to pull it out. Matter of fact, so this is weird, but anyway, so vitamin K and vitamin D3 do come from cholesterol.
Yeah, I believe it. It's a hormone, right?
It is, yes, exactly. So all hormones come from cholesterol.
Oh.
So if we take a statin drug to lower our cholesterol,
you're lowering your vitamin D in your body.
Our vitamin D production. How well? So if you're taking a statin drug and you're outside sunbathing, you're not going to make as much vitamin D because your cholesterol's lower.
It's so crazy you're saying that, because if you think of, it's probably more prevalent in the US, the amount of people that are overweight with cholesterol issues. So how many people are on statin drugs in the US?
Oh, I don't.
It's probably out of control. And then when COVID happened, which we're getting onto a tangent here, but something else. But when COVID happened, the amount of people that are tested with vitamin D and how low their vitamin D levels were, it's amazing you're saying that, because now you put one and one together. And I'm sure that those drugs have a huge factor in bringing those natural vitamin D levels down. And then people's immune systems are weaker, and they're more sustained to catching viruses and bugs and stuff like that too, right?
Yes, exactly. So there were definitely some hospital groups that were giving vitamin D infusions, upon diagnosis of an infection, so that they could, and the people that got those infusions did better.
Oh, 100%.
So it statistically helps most people. Now there's an exception to that, and so actually I'm one of those, and I've probably mentioned this a couple times before. My vitamin D receptor, one of them, there's two basic ones. One of them doesn't work at all, and so therefore my immune cell, it doesn't take the vitamin D, so my immune system isn't going to work as well.
Interesting.
I can absorb the it will help me absorb my minerals, but it won't help my immune system to work. It won't help my bones to work. It won't help my muscles to work. And so that actually increases my risk of all the chronic diseases that we think of. Everything from joint problems to bone issues to cancer to dementia to any vascular. Matter of fact, vascular is involved in all of these things. I'm just at a higher risk. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I've just got to, therefore, I have to compensate.
Be more aware of it. So would you focus more on increasing your vitamin K2? That's why you did the 500, I'm assuming, right?
Well, that's part of it, but I recommend that same thing for everybody. Like I said, I really see, I remember when I was in pharmacy school back in the 70s, in pharmacy school, they said, if you take more than 400 units a day, you're going to die.
Of vitamin D.
And vitamin D. Yes. And so at the time, that was the recommended daily allowance. And if you take more, you're going to die. And something about there were some people that ate Eskimo liver and, not Eskimo liver, excuse me, polar bear liver.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, there was actually some white people that were up in an area, and they were eating, seal and polar bear organs high in vitamin D because it's a fat soluble, hormone. And those people actually got toxic, and some of them died from like vitamin A and vitamin D toxicities.
Interesting.
So, but anyway, that's wrong. So they didn't know. They weren't testing levels.
Yeah.
They didn't know. So there still in the United States, the RDA or recommended daily allowance or whatever they call that, RDI is still like 400 units a day.
Yeah,
and so that's like ridiculous.
If you go to any supplement store, I mean, most vitamin Ds are always minimal, starting at 1,000 IUs.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. And matter of fact, we have drops that are like, one drop is, I have different strengths, but one drop is 1,000 IUs, and we give that to children all the time.
Yeah. My
especially in the wintertime.
Both my children, I mean, since from a young age, vitamin D, vitamin C, and omega-3s have been part of their, now actually even curcumin, but they've been always part of their breakfast. Here's your vitamin D, here's your vitamin C, here's your omega-3, part of your breakfast. And you're so used to it. Then my kids now, as soon as they get up, they're popping their vitamins before even breakfast now. It's just part of their daily routine, right? So to wrap this up, I mean, we gave a lot of information today for vitamin D. So to wrap this up,
I got one more. I got
100%.
One more. Yeah. Okay. So So vitamin D, what this anti-cancer effect is, so vitamin D attaches to a cell, a normal cell, and helps keep it normal. If there's no vitamin D on this cell, now it's not normal. It's not going to function right. Everything about it's going to be off. And so that increases the risk of what we call poorly differentiated cells. So in a cancer diagnosis, and I see biopsies on this, if the biopsy and the pathology states poorly differentiated, that means a cell, say a prostate cell, is actually so poorly differentiated, it doesn't even look, they pulled it from the prostate, it doesn't even look like a prostate cell. And so that is a major concern. That is a rapid growing, metastasizing, nasty type issue. So, but anyway, so it helps cells to be normal. And that actually is a significant cancer thing. So, adding vitamin D on top of like a high dose of vitamin D on top of a cancer situation might help some, but it is not a cure because those cells are already kind of freaked. They're already weird. And they're growing.
You want to attack the cells before they go rogue.
Exactly. Yeah. But therefore, if you get cancer, you're at a higher risk of getting another cancer, a different type of cancer.
Spreading, yes.
So therefore, I'm a big believer. I take the vitamin D, even though my vitamin D receptor doesn't work, one of them, I still take it. And because there's still other needs for it, and that we don't even know about yet. 20 years from now, we're going to learn more as we, go through this. So sorry about throwing that in, but
no, that was great information.
Helps all cells, every cell in our body to be normal.
Yeah.
And function better.
And that is simple, such a simple breakdown of how it actually works. I love how you described it with the cell and how it breaks it down. So average person, we want to get to 4,000 to 5,000 IUs. We want to typically you want to keep it attached to a K2 in a perfect world.
Correct.
And that is, you could buy that anywhere. You could buy those at Costco. You could buy it at your local pharmacy. You could buy it at a drugstore. You could buy it at a supplement store. It's available everywhere now. So you can see the mix of them.
One more interruption though. Okay. There's a quality issue. It's a hormone. It's a hormone, and it's sensitive to storage temperatures. And so a vitamin D, if it's a poorly made and they let heat attack it while they're making it, or in storage, then your vitamin D level may not be as good. And so I have some people that have gotten vitamin D from a discount store, and when they took it, wasn't working very good. They just switched over to a better quality one, and which means actually it did cost a little bit more, but a little bit better quality one, and their vitamin D levels came up. They didn't make any changes.
When you're saying that, would you recommend storing it in the fridge?
That's not the issue. I think it's another area.
It's the manufacturing issue. Okay.
Yeah, manufacturing, or like leaving it out in the car, and like extreme temperatures in the sunshine, the shipping, and then also there's a quality, and once again, just manufacturing. So some companies, just crank out so much and the machines get hot.
Yeah. And they're cheaping out on, it's all about volume, right? So look at the quality, look at the brand. Obviously check the reviews on it as well. So okay. This is great information. So vitamin D, I mean, like I said, it was part of my daily supplements before cancer. It is a bigger part of it when I did get diagnosed, and it's something I'll probably do the rest of my life. And you're a big proponent of it. So vitamin D, everyone, make sure you take it.
Right.
Consult your physician like always. Consult your physician. Consult somebody like Keith that could actually look at your blood work and see what dose is needed. Because you don't want to just be like, hey, I'm going to start taking 4,000 or 5,000 IUs. And you are naturally somebody that has a higher vitamin D level, and you could get into toxicity levels, or you could be taking it and not actually doing nothing to it because your receptor is not in. So next time you do your blood work, you're doing your annual physical, ask your doctor. I know in North America, I know in Canada, she's in Canada, you got to pay for it. It's usually like $30-$40. I only do it once a year, but you could do it twice a year. I do it in the fall. That way the temperature's already changing, the sun exposure and the time spending outside is a little less. So I'm preparing myself for the winter, and I can see my levels, and then I increase my dose for the properly to keep me at a certain level throughout the winter, which is if anything is helping me fight any opportunity for my cells to grow rogue, just like you said. So awesome information like always, Keith. This is
great,
helping tons of people, and excited to release this podcast. Any last notes you want to jump on there?
No, just follow up with your blood tests. Very important. And adjust doses.
100%. Thank you, buddy.
Okay.
Until next week.
Okay, great.